Good afternoon and welcome to the Standing Committee meeting for Wednesday, June 21st, 2023. All council meetings will continue to be live streamed on the city's website. Our first order of business is roll call. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Reverend Burgess.
Here.
Mr. Coghill.
Here.
Ms. Gross.
Here.
Mr. Kraus.
Here.
Mrs. Cal Smith. Ms. Strasburg.
Here.
Ms. Warwick. Mr. Wilson. Mr. Lavelle, Chair.
Here.
7 members present.
Thank you. Our next order of business is public comment. I would like to remind all speakers that the rules of council state that comments are limited to matters of concern, official action, or deliberation which are or may be before city council, and profanity is not permitted. After you are called, please restate your name and provide your neighborhood for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak. Our first registered speaker is Naomi Mullen. See you online and you're not muted.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Here. Shady trees, not shady fields, and Bon Air. The Pennsylvania State Constitution says the government was created for the peace, safety, and happiness of we the people. Decisions and actions that harm the people are not acceptable. There are elected and appointed officials that have proven themselves to be enemies of Bon Air. That is not advisable. The school board has proven itself as being detrimental. Will you be part of the solution? The green space that we want is a partial reparation for the injuries we have received. Shady trees, not shady deals in Bon Air. On Saturday, April 29th, we had a meeting this year for Bon Air Green Space. Again, education showed up. Also, doesn't wanted anything other than a green the school building. Excusable.
You're fading out, Ms. Mullen. So we'll move on to our second speaker, Dr. Ronald Lynn Miller.
Dr. Ronald N. Miller, Bells-Hoover, Global Intelligence Society candidate for President 2024, globalintelligencesociety.org. When I was at Oxford at St. Anthony's and also the Department of International History at the University of London, my specialization was the Nichi e Dome, which is the English-Japanese alliance of 1905. A very important alliance that I think should be renewed, with the Bay being replacing the English part of that for us now. Concern of this council is that it also internationally, it's also the vote. The vote has two sides, the approach to it. One side is voterism. It has to do with the governance, embedded individuals and institutions, like the Allegheny County Election Division, backed up by non-elected vote systems. I think they're bugs. That sub-rationally claim that your vote is secure. It is secure up to a point. I mean, 99%, but there's 1% that they usually identify, or less than 1% that identify that must be, or that may be lost or misapplied. So there's a percentage of that is a very low percent, they claim, that may be a problem. But citizens, do you want your vote to be one of those, one that's lost or misapplied? The Allegheny County Election Division does not permit citizens to go and check for whom they voted. So you can vote in the morning or vote in the afternoon, but you can't check in the evening, to see whether that's okay. The other side of voterism, dialectical voterism, has to do with an approach which says your vote has been stolen. 1% or up to 10% they claim that is lost or is misapplied, your vote for A goes to B. But do you think that those people who, institutions across the United States, do you think that they say we need a paper ballot? Overwhelmingly no. Or that the voters need an encrypted receipt? Overwhelmingly no. But my approach, what I call the trialectical evidential approach since 2012, insists on a paper ballot and also vote by voter verification for whom. Not just that you voted, but for whom you voted. I think this is the core issue of our democracy. And I'm insisting, and hopefully take back the vote, citizens. Take control of your own vote.
Thank you. Our next registered speaker is Pomai Chakmam Yahelihi.
Greetings, everyone. My title is Chief Inca Pomai Chakmam Yahelihi, and I am a Grand Inca of my nation, and I'm also a Grand Inca member of the Iroquois Confederacy of Aboriginal American People. And I come to you today to remind you of our treaty with your ancestors, the Delaware Treaty, for this particular reason. And in Article 1, that all offenses or acts of hostilities by one or either of the contracting parties against the other to be mutually forgiven and buried in the depth of oblivion, nevermore to be had in remembrance. And that Article 2, that a perpetual peace and friendship shall henceforth take place and subsist between the contracting parties aforesaid. Now, I'm not going to read further into that, but I suggest that everyone on council and the URA Land Bank read this Delaware Treaty, because we are enforcing this treaty on this land. And the problem is that there is not an equal and a fair and a just way of working together that has been implemented on your part. On our part, yes, we've extended our hand, and we continue to do so. And without redress, I must add, at this moment. So there's not going to be a continuation of non-redress. And I want to remind everyone that House Congress Resolution 331 is a concurrent resolution to acknowledge the contributions of the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations to the development of the United States Constitution. Yes, it was our ancestors that assisted your ancestors. And to reaffirm the continuing government-to-government relationship between Indian tribes and the United States established in the Constitution. Whereas the original framers of the Constitution, including most notably George Washington and Benjamin Franklin, are known to have greatly admired our concepts of the nations of the Iroquois Confederacy. And whereas the Confederation of the original 13 colonies into one republic was influenced by our political systems developed by our Confederacy. And so moving forward, there has to be remedy to our people. There must be remediation of what has happened on this particular area. We call the Delaware Treaty, Delaware Territory, you call it Pittsburgh. So as we continue to have discussions outside of this forum and within this forum, be mindful of your oath to the Constitution. Be mindful of your oath to Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, and excluding Indians not taxed. And I yield.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Uhauhi Chaunankuin.
Greetings, and like Alaka'in, I am an Aborigine American matriarch, and my title is Yajalaji Chanal Ka'in, located in the Delaware Territory, as you all will call Pittsburgh, PA. My statement today are to invoke my people's constitutional indigenous rights. We are the original beings, the original stewards of our ancestral lands, the Americas, including the islands, the Onwe Onwe from our great law of peace. My people are recognized in multiple maxims of law and documents such as the Constitution, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3, and excluding Indians not taxed, the Delaware Treaty, the Northwest Ordinance, the ADRIPT, the UNDRIPT, House Congress Resolution 331, 100th Congress Second Session, and the list continues. The city is under the jurisdiction of the state. The state is under the jurisdiction of the government. Are you going to honor your oath to the Constitution? Are you going to continue to commit 18 U.S. Code 2381 treason, 18 U.S. Code 1091 genocide? Are you going to continue to force assimilation, eugenics, colonization, causing my people to be prisoners of war against the Aborigine Americans? Uphold your oath to the Constitution. Uphold your Episcopal ancestors' oath. Uphold your Slav ancestors' oath to the Constitution. We are not to be confused with Title 25 Native Americans, who are the immigrants, the foreigner, the citizens naturalized under the jurisdiction of the United States, which is a corporation, and a corporation is a business. You are on stolen land, and you have stolen our resources. Are you going to continue to walk in the footsteps of your many nefarious ancestors, such as Walter Ashby Flecker, a physician, the first Virginia State Register of Vital Statistics from 1912 to 1946, a promoter of eugenics, a discredited movement nefariously pressuring state agencies to reclassify my people as colored? The policy's legacy was effectively to erase Indians as an identity and has made it difficult for Indians, so-called, to gain state federal recognition. My people are Aborigine Americans who have been reclassified as so-called Indian, so-called colored, so-called Negro, so-called Black, and so-called African American. We cannot be from two places at once. We cannot be immigrants and we cannot be foreigners, and my people are not citizens, not going through the 10 steps of naturalization. We are not from Africa, which it is an actual city, and that continent is actually called Barbaria. We're your ancestors, the ages, and I yield.
Thank you. That exhausts our list of registered speakers. If there's anyone in chambers wishing to speak, please come forward at this time. Provide your name, neighborhood for the record. You'll be given 3 minutes to speak.
My name is Yvonne F. Brown. I live at 715 Mercer Street. That's up on Bedford Avenue, the high rise up on the top of the hill. What I came here today was to try to remind you that I have been this is November of 2015, when we had the trucks, the people that cook in the trucks, the different trucks came here. These were employers, employees, and business owners. And it was this. What I say, I agree city council members should shop at the Shop and Save on Center Avenue in the Hill District. Concerns: substandard meat, rotten fruit and vegetables, rotten cucumbers. This was on Facebook. Somebody showed what they had sold to someone. Okay, bakery day old, they were priced higher than the fresh food. Many say Shop and Save prices are higher than other stores. 5 citizens I know told me that they do not go to Shop and Save because they're not allowed back in the store. We had the owner's brother-in-law that would swear, actually used the F word and would swear at people. And when I found out that they said that he got fired, but he had been stealing from his brother-in-law. That's why he hired him. The reason why I have here, I agree city council members should shop at Shop and Save. There was one of the owners that had the truck. She caught me out in the hallway and she said, "Miss Brown, you are right." She said, "I brought a green pepper one time. I took it home, and when she took it out of the package, it was rotten on the inside." She said, "I took it back to the store." She said, "You tell city council to come and shop up there. I told you to do, but you never did. Then another thing you have to realize, you put a store, Shop and Save on Center Avenue. You change the buses that they don't even come past Shop and Save at all. You have to get a jitney to go home. Did that make sense? No, it did not for the older people. They caught hell, and they're still catching it. We have nowhere to, we don't have food up here to get. We don't have food. I want you to understand, I keep coming because I want you to understand, you may not want me here. I have a paper I had from Janet Reno. When she came here to Pittsburgh, I went to the college. I had a big sign about Johnny Gambage. She was talking, then she stopped, and she says, I see your sign. I have another meeting, but if you write me, I will answer you. I wrote her. And this is what I'm saying. When she died, I said, Janet Reno, rest in peace. I give you honor and praise. You were a woman of your word. You did as you said. You wrote an answer to my concerns about Johnny Gambage, Pittsburgh police, and the Gestapo tactics that they used to kill him.
Any further speakers? Any further speakers? Seeing none, that takes us to our standing committee agenda. The first committee of the day is Finance and Law, which is chaired by myself. Our one deferred paper is Bill 1072.
Bill 1072, ordinance amending the Pittsburgh Code of Ordinances, Title 5, Traffic, Article 7, Parking, by creating a new Chapter 550, Lawrenceville Mobility Enhancement District.
Motion to approve, brief discussion. So, members, I motioned for a public hearing on the bill, but separately from the bill. So now I'm just going to motion to hold this pending the public hearing that we're working on scheduling.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill be held for a public hearing. That takes us to our new paper, Bill 1629.
Bill 1629, resolution amending resolution number 89 of 2023, which authorized the city controller to accept updated financial system account strings and pay invoices for those contracts whose funding sources shifted from the Office of Equity into the Office of the Mayor by adding an additional contract to the list.
Second.
Second.
Who's here? Hi, come on up, please. Just a lot of language going on and no dollar signs, so kind of like to have a sense of the quick thing.
Sure. Hi. Good afternoon, Council. Patrick Cornell, Chief Financial Officer. So earlier in the year, you all passed a resolution that would allow the Controller's Office to shift in a technical correction fashion the account strings from the Office of Equity into the Office of the Mayor. I neglected to add one to the list, and this is a correction to add that contract to the list. The contract itself is the Neighborhood Allies contract that was authorized by City Council in 2021, and that is already approved for an amount this year of $30,000.
Very helpful. I really appreciate you, Patrick. Every time you come to the table, you're prepared, and that means a lot to us, so thank you. Happy to support.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thanks, Patrick.
Affirmative recommendation. Need a motion to approve the invoices?
Moved. Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Invoices are approved. Need a motion to approve the P cards.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? P cards are approved. That takes us to the Public Safety and Wellness Committee, chaired by Councilman Coghill. One supplemental paper, Bill 1643.
Bill 1643, resolution amending resolution number 321 of 2022, which authorized the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Safety to enter into an amended agreement or agreements with Pittsburgh Public Safety Supply, Inc. for the provision of uniforms, duty equipment, and related tailoring and embroidering services for the Department of Public Safety. By extending the term for 6 additional months, costs for these commodities will vary based on departmental need.
Motion to approve, brief discussion.
Second.
I see the chiefs are here.
They're here for the next bill.
Oh, you're here for the next bill? Okay, I don't have any questions about this. I thought others may, and I thought they were here to speak to it, but if everybody's...
I think he's here to ask for a uniform.
Yay.
I have a question, Councilman.
Okay.
Okay. Madam
I'm
President.
just curious how long they expect to extend this. I mean, other than 6 months, and after this, will they make sure the new contract comes before us?
Yes, I believe this was an RFP contract. So once
Okay.
it comes to a close, it'll have to come back, be RFP'd and come back for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the title reads, it strikes out $10,910,579 and replaces it with $56,188,000 or so dollars. And then in the text file, it appears to, okay, yes, for 2023, we're paying, for the last 3 years, including this year, we're paying $2,237,500.
No, no. Are you on the next bill? That's the next bill.
Oh, and they said that's what they're here for, yeah. Okay. Oh, wait.
All right. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Now we'll move to Bill 1628.
Bill 1628, Resolution amending Resolution 745, effective 2019, authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Public Safety to enter on behalf of the city of Pittsburgh into an amended professional service agreement or agreements with Axon Enterprise, Inc. for body-worn cameras and tasers to the Bureau of Police at an additional cost of $45,277,527.45 over 10 years. This new contract amends the existing agreement and includes new provisions for body-worn cameras, tasers, and other related support services.
Motion to approve with discussion.
Discussion, Councilman Coghill?
I guess we bring the chiefs up, right? If he wants to come. How you doing, Chris?
Don't look so scared.
You all know,
Actually friendly.
you all know the routine. You know your name.
I've been here before.
Yeah, exactly. So introduce yourselves.
Larry Scarrato, Chief of Police.
Charles Showers, Department Business Administrator for Public Safety.
Chris Ragland, Commander of the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police.
Okay, I only have one question, and then we'll open it up to members. This is to replace all devices over tasers.
Devices, evidence.com, so all of our technology as it relates to evidence storage, as it relates to the taser, as it relates to Axon and our video equipment, from our body-worn camera to our in-vehicle camera system.
And help me out. Are they just outdated? Is that right? Is it new technology?
Well, over time, we have, with the body-worn camera, we have incorporated that into our operations branch and in our investigations branch, and it has become the system that we use. But we were using a competing system in our vehicles, which was L3. And so that system doesn't communicate with Axon, and so it doesn't serve its purpose. And as we change and transition to all Axon products, this was the recommendation.
The tasers, all new tasers.
All new tasers, Taser 10, so it's the current technology. It's not only the technology, it's our evidence storage, our online portal for communicating with our citizens before and after 911 calls. So it gives us a multitude of platforms that we otherwise wouldn't have had in the past.
Right. So it's not necessarily the technology of the old tasers versus the new tasers. It's the company we're dealing with. Is that right?
Right. It's an all-inclusive platform that serves our purposes the best as it relates to even as it relates to taser and to body-worn camera footage.
Any idea what we do with all the old used ones that we're phasing out? Equipment, all the equipment?
It's actually on a normal replacement plan, so
Okay.
that is something that the company takes care of as it regards to.
Yeah, their lifespan's only so long for them, right? Correct. And we're entering that period where they need to be replaced.
Correct, and we continue to purchase them as a course of action normally. So, like whether it's going to be L3 or Axon, we would continue that course of conduct to make purchases for our in-car video systems, for our body-worn cameras, for our tasers as the technology is advanced as well.
And with Axon, we're doing it just more efficiently and effective as to we're dealing with one company.
Yeah, and the platform, it serves us well.
Right.
It's been reliable, it's been consistent, and the company is technology forward, which serves not only our organization, our officers, but our community.
Good. Okay, that's all for me.
Thank you, Councilman Kraus.
Yep, thank you. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Appreciate it. One thing this council has always been accommodating to law enforcement to have everything that they need to do the very difficult jobs that we ask you to do. So I hope I remember this correctly. I believe we brought our first version of a body-worn camera when I first came into office. I think about 16 years or so ago, I think. Am I? No?
Don't quote me. I think it was like 2016, maybe 2015.
No, we did body cameras long before.
In-car.
In-car cameras.
Oh, no, I'm talking body-worn cameras. Yeah.
Not much before.
I guess the point I'm trying to make is what version of this are we going into? I remember 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 times now that we may have upgraded to the next platform, if you will, that is more advanced than
So this is the third iteration, so Axon 3?
Yes.
Okay. So we've always been with Axon as it relates to body-worn cameras?
Yes.
But not car cameras?
Correct. We had a different platform because we've had that for quite some time. Now that's maybe going back to 2000, or right around
2010 maybe, I think.
Maybe I have my cameras confused.
Yeah, we've had that platform for quite some time.
Okay, but they don't do well. They don't talk well.
They don't
to one
communicate
another.
with each other. They're 2 different companies, and for that reason.
Sure. So this then is an upgrade in the software as well as the hardware. This is coming as a unified package?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. So I'm sorry, please go ahead.
I can kind of give you, it's not just about the cameras. There's a number of different products that Axon will provide to us within this package. So there's the in-car cameras, which the L3 system is a server-based system, which means that each station has to have a server where the cars have to download the video footage. There are some problems with that from technology standpoint. So we're going to go to an Axon-based fleet camera, which will then load up automatically into evidence.com, which is our digital storage platform. We have unlimited digital storage with this platform. So not only do we have unlimited digital storage with Axon recorded devices, there's a lot of different video camera footage that we use for evidence. We can then bring that into our evidence.com and keep it all in one place. So what that allows us to do is if you're a homeowner, you have a Ring camera, you capture something, a crime on your Ring camera, you can provide us we can provide you a link, at which point you can send that information over to Axon and load it up into our evidence.com. Additionally, there's some other modules, and I don't want to kind of bore you with anything. There's a platform called My90, and that's operational now, and that's a post-911 survey. So right now, if you call 911, there is, based upon 17 different categories of call, most of them are report calls. You say your car is broken into, an officer shows up, we take a report. About 8 hours later, you get a text link with a survey link. You get a text message with a survey link, at which point you can choose to complete a survey. And we ask a series of numbers of questions of, were you treated professionally? Was the officer, solve that problem for you? What is most important to you? And we've had that operational since January, got a lot of good feedback, and I think right now, last time I looked at that information, about 85% of respondents to the surveys rate the Pittsburgh Bureau of Police either very professionally or professionally. Additionally to that, we have some virtual reality headsets that will be to allow us to do some scenario-based training with this Axon package, and so de-escalation, very important. It takes place in a virtual world, so we're not having to locate a building, it's doing that scenario-based training outside of the virtual realm is very staffing intensive, and costs a lot. We can do this now in a virtual aspect. So there's a number of different accountability aspects with the body-worn camera as well.
So I'm sorry, Chief.
I just wanted just so for when I look at any technology or any addition to what we would normally carry, I think about 3 things: safety, transparency, and accountability. And this gives us all 3. Just from the perspective of the expectation of video footage when we have use of force, when we have deadly force encounters, we have critical incidents, that there is an expectation from society and our communities, from you all, from the judicial system, that there is footage that speaks to our officers' actions. And in this provides us with that in various platforms, not only from the body, but from the vehicle. There was also a safety aspect from signal sidearm, so when our officers pull their weapon, that the body camera activates, that we're not having our officers in a life or death situation having to concentrate on tapping the body worn, get their firearm out, and then engage in a deadly threat. So from a safety perspective, this system for us then eliminates that extra step of thought process, more importantly, where we would oftentimes lose footage because we won't challenge them to compromise their safety to ensure that we have video footage, but there will be an expectation that that footage exists following one of these events.
So you're taking the conversation exactly where I was hoping to go with it. So when I first came on in 2008, I think, we crafted the city's first camera privacy policy, which has not really been updated since that point in time. Now, when Director Hisrich was Public Safety Director, there was a desire within the Department of Public Safety to revisit our camera privacy policy and update according to the new developments in technology. So one of the questions I have is all the data that has been stored from car cameras at this point in time with a different company just gets shifted over to this new technology, to Axon?
So LP or L3's footage, where does that go?
No, the car camera, which was under a separate company. They have that data. I'm assuming they're going to shift that over to the Axon.
They will keep that data within the purge guidelines, and I'm not certain what they are in this conversation.
Okay.
But that data eventually becomes purged.
Okay.
Unless it has evidentiary value.
Yes. So part of the purpose of the camera privacy policy was to understand the chain of command, if you will, of at least as I remember specifically cameras within the public rights of way and how that data is collected, stored, and the fact that it could be evidentiary in nature. And I want to say it's applicable to camera usage throughout the city, but I can't definitively say that. So that's, I guess, my question. I don't know how to ask what I want to ask you. Do we have a camera privacy policy? What is the camera privacy policy within this kind of a format so that we know that how data is collected, stored, and possibly used as evidence? What's the chain of command? I'm asking that really poorly. I'm sorry.
I think the question you may be asking is how long do we retain camera
That's part of it,
footage
yes.
that is not of an evidence-based or evidentiary value, and that's like 120 days.
And that's policy. That's directed by policy according to a chief. I don't know.
It was directed by policy when we crafted the body-worn camera policy organizationally.
Okay, gotcha. Within this new realm of technology that's going to be more holistic, if you will, in nature under this one umbrella, there'll be new policies crafted as to the way this data is collected, secured, stored, or is that part of the package, or is it going to be based on existing policy?
I don't feel there's a need to change the existing policy. I believe because it's been in existence for such time now, 7 or so years, we haven't had any issues or any direct complaints from community, from the public as it relates to the way in which we store it. The DA's office controls the dissemination of it for public consumption.
I see.
And so in that regard, we will follow our purge guidelines for, again, video footage that doesn't have any evidentiary value moving forward. I think that 6-month period gives us an opportunity to ensure that we don't have, it's part of it's relative to citizen complaints, and giving us the time that we don't purge video that 3 months from now or 4 months from now becomes a complaint, and we won't have that footage to either exonerate or and hold the officer accountable for some type of action.
It's a massive amount of data that we're talking about that's being collected, stored, and sorted. guess is how you say it. And all of those provisions for the collection, the storage, the cataloging, if you will, is all part of this contract. All of that takes place within this system.
Yes, from storage to transcription, so into feedback loops. So yeah, it plays paints a complete picture of what accountability and transparency would look like, to ensure that to your concerns or to community concerns or toward organizational needs, and how we collect that data in a meaningful and useful way.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and so this is over a 10-year period, and clearly technology is going to change. By the time we write the check for this, it's going to change. So how do we adapt over a 10-year period under this contract?
Well, Axon has been very technology forward in their evolution, from going from TASER, and look at the evolution of TASER and what it is when it started to what it has become. So TASER is part of Axon, and that's what it was called when the company started. So this evolution into evidence space, this evolution into body-worn cameras, this evolution into in-car cameras, that was a platform they didn't even exist to service 3 or 4 years ago. And this contract, in its length of time, gives us an opportunity to evolve with technology throughout the next 10 years without evolving the cost of technology looks like 10 years from now when we're trying to accomplish or obtain the same equipment.
So I don't know how to ask this. So upgrades to changes in other software platforms or hardware are included in this contract?
That's correct.
That's a good deal there.
So what does a camera cost today? What does a body-worn camera cost today? What does a TASER cost today? What will that iteration look like 10 years from today? We're
Right.
locking in today's prices 10 years from now.
Right.
So forecasting that we're not ever going to be in an environment that we don't require or demand this level of accountability, this level of account for incidences within our communities, that we are securing a stable cost today, so 10 years from now that it isn't cost prohibitive for us as an organization.
So you may not be able to answer this question, but if you can, I'll ask it. The time to launch this, for lack of a better word, once contracts are in place, we all agree this is passed, signed, so forth and so on. When do we seem to think this new hardware, software will hit the streets, give or take, and a year?
We've already started with our Axon cameras, kind of putting the camera system in the vehicles. With respect to, I think our next iteration of body-worn cameras is about 18 months out, and then whenever the next iteration of TASER comes in, we will then receive that.
So this is, I don't want to say what I'm trying to say, but it will come in layers.
Yes.
Over a period of time. Good. Well, thank you for. No, one more question, I guess. I don't understand the data collection of a TASER and how that communication actually happens. How is it because the body-worn camera is automatically activated when if a TASER is removed from the belt? It activates the camera, much like if a gun is removed.
Yes.
Okay. Interesting.
And we need to capture both of those instances. And in the past, we have not. We would only have captured if the TASER was the activating source. But so signal now is with our firearm that it activates the camera as well.
Okay, this was really good. This was very helpful. I appreciate you taking the time to explain it. Always happy to support and make certain that you have what you need to do the difficult jobs we ask you to do.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, members.
Thank you. Councilwoman Gross?
Thank you. So as I was saying earlier, this is a change from 10 million, or almost 11 million, to 56 million. And in the text file, for members of the public, they would have to open up in Legistar and look at the full text. It increases the 2024 year, which was the final year in the first agreement, from 2.2 or so million to 2.7 million. And then in years 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, the contract amount is 4 million or so, close to 4.1, and then it jumps in the year 2030 through year 2034 to 4.9 million in each year. And so I've heard you say a little bit about anticipating rising costs, but Could you speak to why the 10-year agreement? Our first contract was a 5-year, and this one is a new contract. It's being written as an amendment, an extension of a contract, but it's clearly a new contract. Locking in 10 years with the company and adding in some new services, adding in the in-car cameras, I think adding in tasers, which were separately contracted, I believe, adding in virtual reality headsets. Who did the contract? Yeah.
I didn't do the contract,
Oh, okay.
but Axon My90 is also part of that as well. So I think you've mentioned it, the fleet, you have the body-worn cameras, you have all of the evidence storage, you have all of the accountability aspects with that, activations of the cameras, the virtual headsets. So I think you kind of covered some of that. I can't answer the questions about, like, I think there was a cost savings from the 5 years to the 10 years. I think it was significant because I think the director had them cost out both a 5-year and a 10-year contract, and I think there was a significant cost savings between the 5-year and 10-year.
Is there a savings by bundling these different services that were separately contracted? I mean, this contract is going from about $2 million a year to about $4 million a year or higher per year.
I believe there's a cost savings.
From the 5-year to the 10-year.
Yes.
Then why is it twice as much per year?
Well, again, we didn't have fleet in that initial contract. That initial contract basically had body-worn camera and the evidence storage. So if you're going and looking at, why the doubling, we have a fleet of, and they're on all the marked cars, so you're probably, I don't know how many marked cars we have, but it's over 100. So you have over 100 cars that have now in-car cameras. You have the virtual headsets, which I think we'll be getting 38 of those. And with all of the software packages associated with such, you also have the Axon My90 product, there's 3 portions of that. There is the post-911 survey, which I spoke about. They accumulate all of that data, put it on a dashboard for us to view. There's also an internal survey aspect, which we can survey internally our employees. And there's a community survey page, which we can post a link onto some of our web pages to get feedback from the community. Additionally, there is a text message portion of that. So if somebody calls 911, we can set up that individual to receive a text message. And the example I would give is if somebody calls in for an accident, we can then send a text message that says if there's no injuries and the car's drivable, you can pull over to the side of the road. This is the information you need to exchange. So there's other functions that were not part of the original contract that are now part of this contract.
Okay, so it is a much bigger suite of services.
Yeah, we also have unlimited digital storage and unlimited transcription, which we didn't have before. And as Councilman said, that's a lot of data to store. And so having the unlimited, the ability to store unlimited amount of video data is a big bonus.
So lots of more, what I have sometimes called before in tech contracts, bells and whistles. And then I've also said, well, I want to see if the department actually uses the things, because very often I've had to vote on we voted on multi-million-dollar technology packages previously, and then had to cancel them and kind of scrap the whole set of software and then contract a whole new. I don't think that's going to happen in this place, but I do wonder if, and we can't see it here, nor can we hear it in your testimony, that the separate contracts for the things that we've currently had, like tasers, like vehicle cameras, like the online storage, that the bundling of these services into one contract, there's cost savings. I can probably follow up with, I don't know if you've been working with INP on the contracting, or do you guys do your own? You just do your own? Can you tell me what the separate contract for vehicle cameras was before this one? The one you're Leaving?
I do not have that information in front of me right now, but we'll be happy to research that.
I mean, for all I know, it was $5, right? What do I know?
Councilwoman Gross?
Yeah.
If it'll be helpful, I was trying to find it. I don't have it in front of me, but I had a conversation with Director Pollock. He may be able to walk us through what the savings are. If you would like him to come to
I
the
don't want to
table.
bring you up to the table if you don't actually have the information. Also, you sure? Yep. You can stall for a minute.
No.
Okay. Thank you. So yeah, if we as the public can articulate, because again, we're locking up, in this case, not just 2 million, 2.2, 2.5 million a year, but we're literally committing 4 million a year for the next 5 years, and then nearly 5 million a year for the next 5 years after that. And that's a lot of money, as we have other decisions like that in front of us. So we want to make sure that the bundling is also cheaper than if we did it separately.
I can speak to that. Jake Pollack, Deputy Mayor and Director of the Office of Management and Budget. So as Commander Ragland mentioned, Director Schmidt requested both 5 and 10-year pricing from Axon in preparation for advancing this contract, and Axon offered significant discounts for a 10-year commitment, which average out to be, the average savings per year is $877,000, but the total savings over the life of a 10-year contract is $10,089,367.45. So by signing on to a longer-term commitment, we're able to reduce the total cost of these services over that 10 years by $10 million. The value, I did actually ask the director several of the same questions you've been asking, Councilperson, about the long-term kind of state of technology in this sector and Axon, and I think he felt comfortable, as did the folks in the Bureau, and they can certainly speak to this more firsthand than I can, right, that Axon is one of, if not the leading vendor for these services in the sector, and that's unlikely to change given the way in which the market is, that market is structured, and that having all of our services of this type in the hands of one vendor, and allowing for the various pieces of equipment to communicate with each other and for the data storage to be integrated, will allow for the most seamless capturing of the necessary evidentiary data. So for example, if the in-car cameras and the body-worn cameras and the taser and firearm sensors are all communicating with each other, they can enable each other, activate each other as an officer moves from pursuit to out of their car. So then the sort of the car camera will tell the body-worn camera to activate. Certainly then if they draw their weapon, it activates. And then the storage all happens in one place. So it streamlines the way in which we're able to, as the chief and commander were saying, maintain clear accountability information across a single platform. So there's both a financial savings from a 10-year commitment and confidence, I think, in the Bureau, in the Department of Public Safety, and ultimately in OMB, that a 10-year commitment to Axon is, from a business decision point of view for the city, a smart investment, particularly if we're able to get that pricing.
I'm somewhat comforted that it's a company that has proven that it is functional before, that we've been using it. I just can't help but say an old person thing, not to be a Luddite, but the more dependent we are on all these combined services, they can, in 10 years, they can easily triple the price, and we're completely dependent. We've literally seen that happen while I've been at council. Suddenly we're dependent on these functions, and it's just one vendor who's able to provide them for us. So let me switch. I've said that it's a problem that we've faced before. We're going to face again. I don't have the solution here, so it's not really appropriate, but I do think it's a discussion we should have. I'll also say again what I've said before, is that the use of technology and cameras is twofold, and certainly with the body cameras, our citizens want that chain of evidence, so that they have backup to what they have experienced. But with the powerful cameras that we are now adding all over the place, including now we have both in-car and body-worn cameras, we want to make sure that there's no monitoring happening, right? And that's a big difference. And I asked this last when we were talking about the Eye of Sauron on the top of the UPMC building. That is a powerful camera that can see into people's houses that I frankly didn't know existed until this year. And so I said then, and I'll say again, that we just need to continue to have these conversations as the power of this technology moves. That it's not, it's incumbent upon this table to make sure that people's rights are being protected. Because, or to pay for these things, or to buy them or not buy them. Can someone remind us and the public then, kind of what is now the standard around body cameras? So hearing that ours will now activate when either a taser or a sidearm is taken unbelted or unholstered. Is that the standard? Would you be able to activate the body camera even before? Yes. What is our kind of standard of having body cameras on?
So citizen encounters, call for service, traffic stops, engagement. So that citizen encounters, whether it's initiated by our officers or initiated by calls for service, traffic stop, et cetera, those will be the opportunities or the moments those cameras activate. And so that is accurately capturing our officers' encounters with the public, with our members of the community, to ensure that level of accountability that we all demand, and that level of transparency that we all demand. Gives us also the opportunity then to remediate behavior, remediate training. So it serves multiple purposes for us, but that is where we're capturing and activating the cameras in those encounters.
So it's supposed to have been on anyway. And then if I unbelt my taser, it's going to double make sure it's on?
That's correct. It's a backstop in case through user error, perhaps, or if a situation escalates quickly and the officer didn't have a reason to activate the camera earlier. So either they're caught by surprise and so didn't have a reason to have it on already, or they made an error and didn't activate it when they should have. But then a situation escalates to the point that they're drawing a weapon. It guarantees that it activates itself at that stage, rather than the incident where the weapon is drawn and potentially used, not being captured due to user error or surprise.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So again, this is, $56 million. It is a hefty price tag. We don't have other options, honestly, for storing our video storage, right? So this is cloud-based. We wouldn't even be able to buy the servers and the personnel to monitor the servers. So we're completely dependent on the cloud, like most of us are, for everything else, including like your list of phone numbers in your phone. So the vehicle camera stuff is going from server to cloud-based to be folded into the cloud-based subscription. I'll just emphasize that subscription. We're basically paying $56 million for a digital subscription, and some of the hard equipment that goes with it. Okay, that's all I have for now.
Thank you. Councilman Wilson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a large contract, and specifically in terms of this contract, you're talking about immediately the car cameras have to be replaced. Is that correct?
Yes. So L3 system cost us about $500 million a year, $500,000 a year, if we were going to equip 40 vehicles with the service agreement. The camera's about $7,000 a piece. It doesn't account a maintenance plan, so if something were to be damaged, plus it doesn't also account the servers that we are required to have in our stations geographically located throughout the city, so that information is uploaded and captured when it occurs.
But that's the system that doesn't talk to or coordinate with
yes.
The Axon. What brand is that?
L3?
So the L3s have to be replaced. And then when would we replace the body cameras and the tasers?
That happens on a basis when I think it's every 36 months, or when a new body-worn camera iteration comes out.
Okay, so just on a rolling basis.
Correct.
They give us the newest version. If we have a long-term agreement, we get the newest version of their system every time they make an upgrade. Barring that, I think on a 36-month rotation, they'll replace them with an in-kind unit if they haven't made an improvement to the technology in between.
Okay. But immediately we're going to replace all the units in the cars.
Correct.
Or the vehicles. Okay. Because the way it reads here, it's like, obviously, I don't have the full text up, but right away it says for body-worn cameras and tasers, but it seems like it's actually for the replacement of the
in-car cameras.
The in-car initially.
I think I can help answer that, Councilman. The switch from L3 to Axon for the in-car cameras was authorized separately earlier in the year, so that's why they mentioned that conversion has already started to occur.
Oh.
This contract would combine a renewal of our taser and body-worn camera package with the fully integrated suite. So that's why the text doesn't call out that switch of the cars, because you already approved that earlier in the year.
Gotcha. Okay. That's helpful. And then the technology that you're describing, where you're doing employee surveys?
Yeah, that's part of the My 90 portion of that contract.
Can you tell me more about that?
So, as I said earlier, the My 90 is a survey tool. It does post 911 surveys for individuals who call 911 using the phone number that calls 911. We also have the ability through email addresses to do totally anonymous surveys of our employees, debating on what kind of questions we want to ask. We have not utilized that as of yet. And we also have the ability to do community-type surveys, so we can post that link on one of our web pages, depending on what we want to find out about from the general public.
But in terms of management staff and, or the direction of, from your direction, are there any features here that you're already looking at to look internally at some of the footage or audio?
Some of it is restricted by our bargaining agreement. So there are trigger points that we're allowed to look at video. We're allowed to look at for training improvements. We're allowed to look at for behavioral issues when it's identified, when an officer's been placed on monitoring. So it gives us a lot of accountability pieces that we would otherwise not have, especially when we're talking about engagement with the community. We're talking about internal complaints. And I think it is rather the continued decrease in citizen complaints is a part of this body-worn camera system, that it regulates behavior as well. And also then accounts for our officers' actions when there's complaints lodged against them that are false. So it gives us that sense of security that our officers are acting appropriately all the time, especially when they're engaged with the community. So in that accountability piece, I think it's really important.
And if I may, Chief has been very clear about, one of his pillars has been officer wellness and giving officers purpose. So as we move forward, not just identifying when maybe an officer does something wrong, but we utilize the technology that we have to identify when an officer does something well. And so that's part of the reason why we've kind of instituted My 90, which allows people to kind of comment on how they were treated and how the officer responded to their call. You couple that with some other tools. And you can, there's a lot of things that officers do well that never fall into a stat column. But, how you're treated is very important. And so as we move forward, this gives us the ability to kind of recognize good work and incentivize professional treatment of, our citizens.
So you talked a lot about on the customer side. I'm not sure what the resident side, customer, I can't remember what exact term you use, but it looks like you're talking about customer satisfaction, but also the question I was asking was directed at the management, and it definitely sounds like you're using tools that are available to analyze your own staff, regardless of what that, what the surveys are saying from the resident side.
Well, I think that could be a comprehensive approach. I think we have to sit down and kind of look at what kind of tools we currently have, and kind of develop a professional matrix, so to speak, of how an officer performs. So I think that there's obviously the opportunity is there, but that's something that the chief and his management team have to sit down and take a look at.
Do you see that as a direction you take just on your own, or would that be something that you'd want to get clearance from the administration or council on?
I don't think we need to be prompted to be accountable. So when we're talking about arrests, we're talking about use of force, we're talking about training. Those are the initiatives that I should lead. I don't think I need to be pushed into one of these scenarios. It's absolutely the way in which I see this police department moving forward and the way in which I see we serve our officers in our community. So it doesn't need direction from anyone else. I think when we're proactive in this space that we actually accomplish more than it being forced upon us in some other way or some other medium to get to us. So I think of even from the training perspective that like the virtual reality, we talk about active bystander behavior, we talk about scenario-based training. Well, we don't have a location that we can do that with any frequency. So then it gives us an opportunity to reinforce organizational values, training techniques, today's laws, today's expectations on our officers in a safe manner with just all of the technology that this platform offers us.
How long does, maybe this question was already answered, but how long does the video get stored on a body camera?
It depends. So if it's a crime, it's stored, until such time that DA says that we can get rid of it. If it's, evidentiary value, it's, up to the DA. If it's, just a regular citizen encounter, it's usually 120 days.
But the cameras outside on the poles or with the shot spotter system that's integrated, that has a...
City cameras are 10 days.
10 days.
Unless we make a request to preserve that.
Mm-hmm. Does the body camera, does the audio, is it always recording?
So it's buffering. It's in standby mode. It's buffering every 30 seconds. It's buffering video only.
But even if
it's buffering video only.
Video only. So
the camera records.
Like is
video,
this Amazon? Is this the what's it called?
It records video only
Alexa?
for 30-second bursts with no audio, and the reason for that is
say again.
It records video only for 30-second bursts that aren't retained with no audio, and the reason for that is when you activate the camera, it preserves the 10 seconds before you push the button to capture whatever may have caused you to activate the camera, but without audio, and then the audio only picks up after the button had been pushed.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councilwoman Warwick.
Yeah, so, when I first saw this come across the table, it definitely raised my eyebrows. It's just an awful lot of money. I think I can safely presume that this bill is going to pass regardless of, what we're talking about at the table. But I do want to underscore that, we're looking at spending $45+ million over the next 10 years to ensure, that every time a taser is drawn, perhaps to be used on a resident, it can be caught on camera and documented for the courts. Here we regularly sort of haggle over costs much smaller than this, that will actually improve life for our residents and make life better in the city. And this is, just to be clear again, this is just so that if we need to taser a resident, we've got it on camera. We've got it recorded. I mean, I think last week we were haggling over $35,000 to give city employees passes for the pogo bikes, about whether we need, So I just can't help that, we're here in budget season, I've got traffic calming projects and playground repairs and there's neighborhoods without rec centers and, I've got parents lining up at 6 a.m. to get a spot in our city park summer camps because we don't have the staff and the resources to expand those camps. I've got neighborhood groups that need funding to offer nighttime activities, which we've talked about that they need at this body, so that our kids in the summer and on weekends when school is out have safe places to go. We don't have the staff or the funds to tear down abandoned properties, to take care of our greenways. Neighbors have to report other neighbors because their sidewalks are inadequate because we don't pay for sidewalks, right? People are responsible for their own sidewalks and all of these gaps and needs, but we have no choice but to vote yes on this bill. And that is frustrating to me. This is not on for you, but that is just frustrating to me. So I do just have a few questions since we're talking about body cams and tasers. I guess the first one, well, one thing too, I do want to just quickly, so like this technology, if I understand correctly, does this also apply to firearms? Like if a firearm is drawn, does the camera turn on and all of that?
So that's what we're talking with signal sidearm. So signal sidearm is meant for the firearm to, when it is drawn from the holster, that it activates the camera. What we're finding is that was a gap in obtaining footage because the officers are focused on the threat that's in front of them, which obviously is a deadly force encounter, and they're not so concerned or aware about the camera on their chest. So, and I would understand that concern as well. So, but I also understand that we cannot fail to capture that most significant event, that daily encounter, and in a meaningful way, and then we're relying on the officers to do it. And if we miss that, the expectations that come from community, the expectations that come from this panel, this board, this body, our expectations organizationally, and the need to have that footage for prosecution, so it touches every facet of what we do professionally, and more importantly, the expectations that come from it. And in that we weren't getting that footage fleet the same way. We were still relying on officers to individually activate the cameras by pushing a button in the middle of their chest.
Right.
Now we're creating an environment that they can't defeat it. It won't be defeated by inaction and or other behaviors that would cause us to lose it.
So just to clarify though, is that just when they draw their taser?
So it's when they draw their taser, it's when they draw their firearm from the vehicle, it's when they remove the rifle or the less lethal munition. So there are it's multifaceted activation from different points, and some are in the vehicle, and it's created. That redundancy is created intentionally to ensure that it's activated by other means beyond the officer and his or her pushing the button in the middle of their chest.
Okay, so just because, and for full, I had called Director Pollock to ask about this, so I don't know if you want, because we had discussed firearms versus tasers.
I think the chief has more up-to-date information than I did at the time we talked.
Okay. All right. So so then I guess my first question is, what is when does an officer draw a taser, and then when do you use a taser, and then when do you use a taser versus using a gun? What is the policy?
So we're talking about intermediate force versus deadly force, right? And those encounters can evolve within the same instance, right? So non-compliance, aggressive non-compliance, assaultive non-compliance, but it doesn't meet deadly force. It doesn't meet the demand of deadly force. It doesn't meet the requirement of deadly force. So that's oftentimes, it can be distance, it can be behaviors, it can be resistance, but then deadly force is very clear that you have the ability to cause serious bodily injury or death to an officer and or others. And in those instances, then that deadly force encounter is then met with firearm.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, so with the use of a taser, so you don't need to be armed to have a taser used?
No, it's an intermediate control tactic. So it is so that we are minimizing the amount of force that either usually could have been deployed by batons and or deployed by officers, multiple officer engagement with a citizen that's resisting. This intermediate use of force minimizes all of that liability that comes with that physical encounter, and it keeps our officers safe, keeps the citizen or the person that's being arrested, contrary to what you may see, in a safer space than if we were using hands-on use of force with multiple officers trying to obtain the same level of compliance.
So the idea is that using a taser on somebody, for example, at a distance is safer than simply not using any weapons at all and just subduing them, I guess? It's
a safer control tactic for certain, for not only the person that we're taking into custody, but for our officers. It's minimizing officer injury, minimizing the potential for officer injury, because it then obviously will create an environment where the officer doesn't have to engage, wrestle, be on the ground fight with someone that refuses to go into custody. So it's a lot more impactful in compliance, and therefore minimizing harm to both the officer and the individual being arrested in that moment.
Okay, but we still have had significant incidences where tasers have actually resulted in I suppose, in death, right? Extreme injury or death of the person.
There aren't many instances where the taser, the weapon system that I know to speak of, has caused death or been proven to cause death. Obviously, when there is a failure in the weapon system, it's relative to oftentimes the prongs not connecting. It requires both prongs to be touching at the same time. Oftentimes that doesn't occur based on clothing, based on placement. Mm-hmm. So there are instances where the weapon isn't deployed in the manner in which it was designed to do, or there's a malfunction in the deployment. Mm-hmm. And that can be by various outside factors, from placement to clothing to environmental to officer deployment. So, JP or Deputy Mayor, I know you were going to say something relative to that.
Yeah.
Just that to the extent that a taser has caused a deadly incident, it's been when it's been used out of accordance with departmental policy, which, to the point of today's discussion, was captured on body-worn camera and resulted in termination for that reason.
Okay. Okay, so I guess I want to, do we know how many, so my staff found, to be honest, I'm not sure where they found it, but that from 2015 to 2020, that 15% of the time that tasers were deployed on subjects resisting arrest. Do we have a place where we can, I mean, does this system allow us? So, I mean, I would love to know how many times tasers were, I mean, when we talk about how often do we use, right, this is very expensive stuff. How often do we use tasers? And, are there, I'd like a comparison of, times where we've had someone resisting, we don't use a taser, we do use a taser, like which is more effective, et cetera. Do we have any way to report on that?
We capture it. We capture it for certain. I don't have that information with me today, but I'm more than happy to provide it to all of you, any of you. That would be part of our quarterly report on accountability. Okay. So I think as we move forward into some of the conversations I've had with you all previously in our interview, that we start reporting out on what those measurables look like, and then use of force is one of them, and then more importantly, what type of force we are using.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped. Recording in progress.
It's timely.
That's taser. Axon's listening.
Right.
So yes, there will be. We do capture it today, so it's not something we have to start capturing.
Right.
We capture it in our use of force reports, and so it is mandated that we report on what type of force we use, and the effectiveness of it. For that reason is that we stand behind this tool as an ability to influence behavior, as ability to take into custody individuals that are resisting, and in a manner that is least harmful to both the officer and the individual that's going to be taken into custody. And in this, I stand behind this tool as a deployment factor, because otherwise we would be using batons, old things like the blackjack, and or hands-on, and in those instances we know that officer injuries increase. The use of force has to be done by more people, which then increases the opportunity and risk for injury to the person that's resisting as well.
Okay, that makes sense. Okay, so then my next sort of set of questions relates to Axon Enterprises. So we did a little bit of looking into, so first of all, there was a public source article back in 2017, saying that we first moved forward at that year with body cameras, buying body cameras. And at that time, the contract that we negotiated with Axon, it was for $1.5 million. And again, this is just I'm just taking this article at its word, but that at the time we got 550 body cameras for the same price that the New Jersey State Police got 1,000 body cameras. The Los Angeles Police Department got 860 cameras, and the Denver Police Department got 800 cameras. So there were definitely concerns at the time about the contract negotiations with Axon. So I get, so we don't know who, I mean, who did those negotiations? I went on Axon's website and tried to sort of look at their pricing, and just to be clear, that, well, the only prices that they have, so you can, an individual can buy one of these tasers for $1,000, which means we could, you know, an individual could buy 900 tasers for $900,000 and do that every year for 10 years for $9 million. And the same with, now they didn't have prices on their body cams, but, you know, again, body cams, at least equivalent ones for individuals, run about $100. You know, for 10 years, you'd be looking at about $90,000. Now, I understand there's all this software that goes along with that, right? And Axon is sort of like the Apple of body cams and tasers, to the point that actually the Federal Trade Commission filed a complaint against them when they bought their competitor for creating a monopoly in the body cam taser business. So while I understand that there's not much we can necessarily do about it, you know, if Axon is sort of gouging cities across the country, it would be nice to talk with, so who did the negotiation with Axon?
So on behalf of the police department, the person that did that negotiation no longer works for us.
Oh, okay.
So that came out of our technology assignment, because it's not a division. So it came out of a few people that were responsible for technology, and in concert with the obviously the approval of OMB at some point, but that was negotiated. That person doesn't no longer work for us.
Okay.
Director Schmidt, who's not here today, was also involved in those discussions.
Okay.
And while I was not personally involved, I reviewed some of the materials that resulted from that, which is where I was able to quote the discount in my earlier comments. I think it is helpful to think about this engagement. I mean, we are more really leasing the equipment per se than purchasing it, and so
Sure.
the cost is not necessarily. I would think of it more as the cost of having and utilizing the equipment, having it replaced, having it serviced when that's necessary. For example, when the tasers are used, replacement cartridges are provided as a part of the contract, and we're not purchasing those. The associated equipment is included in that cost too. So it's a different pricing model than the sales to the general public, where you purchase
Sure.
sort of at your own risk.
Sure.
And then I would add to that.
Right.
Yeah, there's the digital subscriptions, of course, and then to the various pricings for different cities. As I mentioned, by pursuing a longer contract term, we were able to receive a discount. I don't know all of the departments you mentioned, but could you name them again?
You mean from 2017?
Yeah, the three that got more than we did.
Got more body cams than we did. New
Yeah.
Jersey State Police, Los Angeles Police Department, Denver Police Department.
So I don't know about New Jersey or Denver, but the Los Angeles Police Department is perhaps 10 times as large as ours, right? And so I'm saying that higher purchase, larger users get better pricing, is my point.
Yeah. Okay, so, but then again, though, this does, because I think Councilwoman Grosser, so it's like, yes, we are saving $10,000 on a package that we did not formally have, right? But we are paying double for additional service, right? And now I understand some of that is cameras in the cars and things like that, but it would be nice to know the specifics, right? Like how much are we paying for this text service, where the person gets a text message to give a customer, like a 5-star review to the officer. I mean, that may be a valuable tool, but if it costs, or are these packages, do we just have no choice, and that's just Axon just coming to the city and saying, look, either you buy this giant package that's double what you've been paying, and we'll call it a deal. And by the way, just so everyone knows, their motto is, quote, everything your public safety agency needs without breaking the bank. The other one is, equip your agency with the latest Axon tech and save big when you bundle. So I want to, yeah.
Yeah, I think I don't know if you have this, but the actual quote itself breaks down to some degree what that looks like from the cradle to
that
the.
is attached. It's very complicated
Yeah,
and hard
it's yeah.
right.
To the deputy mayor's point, they did like somewhere they're comparing us versus to LA. It's when you're buying it at such a magnitude that your pricing is different. Like just like if the Allegheny County Police would go to make the same purchase, their price would be different because they're not purchasing nearly as much as we are. So it is a model in flux based on the amount of merchandise or amount of services that you purchase, and then also that changes the pricing of what any standalone.
But I'm just saying, I would like to know, well, it would be nice to know if Axon offers a bundle that doesn't have all these sort of extra bells and whistles that are new, that, you know, like the text service and whatnot.
So the My90 service, which is the text program that Commander Ragland mentioned, is included for free in this package, for example. So in making in agreeing to a 10-year commitment, something that would have cost money on its own is included without cost in this proposal, which is in the materials that you were provided. As is unlimited third-party storage, for example, is listed at no cost. So some of the services that we're articulating here today are not, we're not being charged for by agreeing to other aspects of the package.
Right, but the question is, what is, I mean, and like if it's the cameras, and by the way, the cameras that don't, and again, like I said, Axon is sort of known as the Apple of tasers and cameras. So specifically, and there have been lawsuits with other camera companies because Axon cameras don't work with their, you know, like their stuff doesn't work with other people's stuff. So it's sort of, at any rate, that's just something to know. Again, this is not on you guys. This is just something for the public to know about this company that we're contracting with. And which, quite frankly, we don't have a choice but to contract with because they're the only show in town, more or less, right? They have 70% of the market or something. But again, I'm asking so we're paying an additional $2 million per year. And I understand that we're buying cameras for the cars, and what are the other things that we're getting for that $2 million per year, which, yes, is a deal compared to if we had done a 5-year contract, but what is it that we're getting for the extra $2 million a year? It would be nice to have that clarified, right, compared to what we had and what we're getting. And the freebie stuff,
yeah,
I guess I wouldn't really include that because that's
what we had were the body-worn cameras and the tasers themselves. What we are getting in addition to the continuous replacement of those pieces of equipment are additional software services that allow us to integrate the footage as well as the censoring of other equipment, such as, is the installation of the in-car cameras and their incorporation into the system, which I should note, came at continuing to contract with L3 has a cost that is being offset by migrating, right? So we would no longer be continuing to pay the $7,000 a unit for L3 cameras, continuing to pay for the maintenance of our own servers, additional software to manage their data because it didn't integrate with other data, the sensors at each police zone that downloaded the data from those cameras into that separate system, right? So there are offset costs to not continuing forward with L3 that are achieved by moving to Axon. And then the censoring of tasers at draw, sidearms, and the other equipment in the vehicle, like the long guns that the police keep in the vehicle until they need to use them. So those are the additional services that we'd be getting above and beyond our current engagement, which is limited to the tasers themselves and the body-worn cameras.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that was sort of what I was looking for. So, again, just because, you know, we do have a new police chief, and as I think I said at the swearing in, you know, I do feel like we are at a crossroads here, right, across the country in American policing. And so when we look at costs like this, you know, and we really are talking about just sort of the cameras and the need to just have to watch every single second. I mean, there's no other job at the city or otherwise where you need to literally be watched every single second, like every move you make, That is an abnormal way to be at work, right? And that is the cost of the status quo of policing in this country for so many years, right? This is the kind of money that it's costing us, in addition to, millions of dollars in settlement fees, et cetera, right? Is constant surveillance and scrutiny over officers who, for the most part, are good at their job, right? And doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? So that's, and this isn't about keeping people safe, right? This isn't even about keeping people safe. This is just about scrutinizing every move that our officers make to protect the public, right? In the rare instances, or I should say not more and more infrequent instances where there was actual misconduct, but really also to protect officer, right? Because, you have to have the cameras on because of this state that we are in, right? And that is what the status quo of policing in this country is costing us. So, as you move forward in your new role, I hope that I want the public to understand that it's costing us as taxpayers, and I want the force to understand that it's costing them. I don't know. Peace of mind. I wouldn't want a camera on me constantly at work. That is so stressful. I can't imagine. Yet here we are, and we're paying. It's like we're paying as much per year as we're just putting into affordable housing, more. Into affordable housing. We just had a whole talk about affordable housing and we put in it's $2 million, whatever a year, and we're putting that just into tasers and body cams. It's nuts, right? But it's that's where we are. So it's just I really want the public to hear that, and I want the force to hear that, and then hopefully as you move forward with what I think you have a fantastic plan and vision for kind of moving toward a community police relations that are based on trust and confidence and a guardian, a sense of safety and security and guardianship, and then hopefully maybe someday down the road, I don't want to be a Pollyanna, but we can, not need to be spending this kind of money on this type of thing. So anyway, that's all for me. Thanks.
Thank you. I've got President Smith.
Thank you. I'm just gonna be really cautious because I never like approving a contract that comes before us to continue a contract. I like for us to be able to look at the parameters of the contract and some of the things that are in the contract. So I just have a couple of questions, but first I want to acknowledge Commander Ragland for the work that he's done with the program that we've approved today for Operation Better Block. So thank you for your work there. Was it with Perry? Is that right? You started Perry? So I want to acknowledge that. And so I know that, I know the work you do. And, but I do have some concerns and some questions about this contract overall. And I really think that I'd rather get some of these things in writing. I want to know why, did we try to negotiate with a new RFP? Did we try to negotiate a contract? And could you explain a little bit? Because I just came in for part of the conversation was already ongoing.
So as a few others have mentioned, Axon is a leading and fairly standard. They are in essence, for better or for worse, to points Councilperson Warwick mentioned, the industry standard in this type of technology. They're really the only provider of the kind of comprehensive set of technologies that are being procured here. And in light of that, and in light of the fact that we are already using and sort of configured, if you will, to use their body-worn cameras, which is the most numerous part of the technology, and the tasers, which are also, every officer has one, that to continue our business relationship with them and to add in some of these additional services into an integrated system is, again, from a business perspective, our determination that both the bureaus, the departments, and ultimately OMBs, the best operational and financial choice for this service. And that's why we determined to proceed with the continuation and expansion of a contract rather than a new RFP, given the clear state of the industry, if you will, and the lack
So
of
are
other
these things that
providers.
we need, tools that we need?
Absolutely, yes.
Do you think that we need all these extra bells and whistles?
That's
These are
the
things
chief
that we
to
need?
answer that, actually.
And I think maybe don't get caught up in the bells and whistles because they don't truly have a cost, but we're going to talk about three fundamental things, and that is the fleet, so that's in-car, the body-worn, and the taser. And those three things I think are absolutely essential for our officer safety, for our organizational accountability, and when these encounters occur, to ensure that we're protecting our community in a responsible way.
So I just want to say real quickly, I'm very supportive of our police. I think everybody knows that. But I'm always cautious when it comes to contracts that are being continued instead of coming before us or renegotiated. And then with a quick search, and the first few things I see are FBI investigating state senator in Axon. FBI approaches state senator in criminal investigation regarding Axon. FBI investigating state senator in Axon. I mean, it just goes on, and it's just, so it makes me anxious that then we bring a contract before us that we're just we're just extending. So it makes me a little bit anxious, a little bit nervous. So I would like to know, and the other thing I'd like to know is, do we need any additional capacity technology-wise to sustain all this stuff, these extra things?
So they're very self-sufficient as an organization, as an entity, and in that, I think again to the deputy mayor's point, they are very technology forward in this space. They have, because of the lion's share of the market, they have evolved and advanced it, and I believe they satisfy our needs every time. We have not had issues with the product. We have not had issues with the technology, and so it's fairly easy to stand behind the company as far as a product deployment position. I don't get overly involved in the media and how they're reporting relationships. I've gauged my opinion
But
and
do you
position
know
on.
anything about these? I mean, do you know, did they come out, like, this was 2 years ago, maybe everything was okay? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't follow it in that regard because my concern is more specific to the product and how it serves officers in our community. So what is publicized in some other venue relationship-wise just never became a area that I focused on, just because I'll focus on the product, and the product has served officers in our community well for the 6 or so years that we've been that it's been in service for the organization in our partnership with Axon.
To your question about technology, I believe this migration would actually reduce our need for in-house technology support services. We would reduce other costs for technology by not having to maintain internal servers and internal, like our own equipment, to download footage from the in-car cameras into internal servers. It would improve our efficiency and lessen that burden on IMP by migrating to a cloud-based system that we would have here.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Strasburger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for answering the questions that you've received so far. It's been helpful. The line of questioning has been helpful. Your answers have been helpful. This is a tremendous amount of money, and it's, like others have voiced, it's really difficult for me to wrap my head around spending this amount of money, even if it is over 10 years. In addition, I might not have the same precise concern that Council President Cale Smith voiced, but my concern is more about 10-year contracts. A lot can change over 10 years. I fully understand, let me just say, I understand the utility of this, of it all, of all the technology fitting together, of the many uses of it, both internal, external, throughout the judicial, like I get that point that you've made. I wish we didn't need it, but I understand it. That said, I do take issue with this company, which sounds like it's one of the primary companies out there that can offer these services, saying, we'll give you a discount if you sign this long-term contract, which of course is their right as a business. That's how businesses operate I do understand that. I want those who negotiate contracts to hear loud and clear from council that we want the same savings with a shorter contract. We want a 5-year contract and the same, it's $10 million savings. And feel free to use council as a negotiating chip in the future if you need to get that. But there's so much that can change in 10 years. We don't even, I mean, this company could go under, it could be acquired, or just the way that policing works could change. I don't expect that to happen, but there's just, as examples, I feel more comfortable with a contract being even just extended after 5 years rather than a full 10 years. So rationally understand, of course, that bundling it, putting everything together, allowing the technology to talk to one another, integrating it makes sense financially. But please know that in the future, a shorter contract is preferable, strongly preferable to council, or at least to me. And I would also hope that as Chief, you work to implement the plan that you've articulately and eloquently described here to us at council and to the public, that you can realize through everything from, upstream interventions to minimize the number of 911 calls that we're receiving and being less of a concierge service and whatever else that is related to that plan that puts a premium on, yes, officer wellness, but also health and human services as part of the way that we as public safety, and I mean we broadly as like the county as a partner too, that can result in cost savings that might not have to do directly with this contract. I get that they're not totally connected, but realize other cost savings over time that make something that is, at least for now, so critical and so sort of something that we can't do without a little bit more palatable because we realize savings elsewhere. I guess I don't have a question. If there is something that I've said that anyone would like to sort of respond to, I'm fine with that, but just wanted to voice, again, my concern over a longer contract and this sheer amount of money that we're spending, regardless of how important it is for transparency, officer wellness, and internal and external assessment.
Thank you. Before moving on to the second round, Councilwoman Strasburger started to ask the question that I was going to ask, was simply that, are there any provisions in the contract that allow us to potentially change and or exit? Because so much can change in 10 years. The technology can change. You may need something slightly different for the police force. Like, are there any provisions that say, hey, in year 6, we may need to revisit A, or...
To answer your question, the answer is yes. Now, what those are, I'd have to go through that contract again. But there are provisions that if they are not meeting our needs, or there is some definitive change in technology that they cannot supply, that we can exit that contract.
Thank you. Second round, Councilman Kraus.
Your microphone's not on, Councilman.
What I thought I might bring up a second time around has been addressed. We'll ask this one question just for my edification. I am going to vote in support of this today, but for my edification, the chain of activation. Can you walk me through that again? Is it uniform policy that when an officer is in a car, that camera is going on in these 10-second audio clips of data that isn't stored? Is that
so? As they are responding to a call, they are required to activate the camera.
So responding to a call means they put the reds on?
They don't. No, that's not. It's not light activated. They're going to a call for service, And in anticipation of that arrival, then they are required to turn the camera on before they make contact with the citizen.
The camera in the car.
The body
referencing.
camera.
No, I'm talking the camera.
Oh,
in
the
the
camera
car.
in the car is activated by the lighting system.
Okay.
So when the lights go on, the in-car camera system automatically activates.
But that's the only time it goes on.
You can manually
Just-
activate it.
Okay.
It'll activate if they activate the body worn. So the system activates itself when one of the camera systems is activated.
So the reason I'm kind of asking these questions is the importance of this sort of integration of the system. Even though it might seem a little top-heavy, it's the integration of the system and its communication within itself which provides for these safeguards. And the safeguards, again, for the officer as well as the public at large. And when we talk about these kinds of dollar values and the kind of, unfortunately, the world that we're in today, where we have to make these kinds of investments in technology to protect both the public and law enforcement uniformly, one or two lawsuits that we cannot win in a court of law because we do not have the evidence to support the action of that officer could be 100-fold what we would be putting into a contract like this. And this council has experienced that over the years that I've been here a number of times, where we've, and the finance chair is shaking his head, where we were faced with enormous sums of money that were staggering amounts that could have crippled or bankrupted this city, that thank God there was provision in place where we were able to navigate those to, successful outcome to the benefit of the public we serve. So I was just trying to have a little better understanding of the integration of it all and how it all works collectively and cooperatively in a holistic fashion. I'm just trying to understand that better. I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about this a little bit further. I'm sure I'm going to be calling you tonight.
Well, may I add a
Yes,
point,
please,
to,
would you?
point to your point about litigation? There's another dimension to the value of the recordings beyond protecting the officer, protecting the public, and protecting the city in the case of litigation, which you just mentioned and is an excellent point. And it is that prosecutors, judges, and juries, as video recording becomes more prevalent, have become more insistent on that as part of the evidentiary record in order to secure convictions or, in some cases, exonerations. We find that increasingly prosecutors want to have video evidence of a situation in order for that to supply necessary evidence to advance to charges. And we've also found instances where video evidence has exonerated officers who've been alleged with misconduct, where that may not have been the case if that wasn't part of the evidentiary record. So in addition to sort of providing surety, in the case specifically of criminal prosecutions, we've been able to advance cases and secure favorable outcomes in the judicial system through the use of video footage, because as we again, I don't mean to comment on it, but just as it has become more prevalent, it has become more expected, and thus our ability to capably execute on charges brought against individuals that we've taken into custody, it's essential that we have as much video evidence as possible.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I agree with the state of the world that we are in, as the commander smiles. But it's the reality of the situation that we are in that drives our need to invest this way. One more question, please, about the totality of the system. How is the storage ultimately achieved? Is the storage at the end of the day, someone has the job of uploading everything, or it is part of the system as that's the camera's activated in these intermittent, no audio, just video snippets that are deleted as time goes on? They're automatically uploaded into the cloud in real time? And if you don't know, that's good.
So the car is, yes, the car has, internet card, uploads automatically. The body-worn camera would get docked in a docking station at each of the stations, duty locations. So it goes into the dock, automatically uploads into evidence.com.
I'm sorry, say that again. The officer has to physically put that on
Yeah,
the
you
dock?
take it off at the end of the
shift.
and put it into the dock.
Okay, and what about the car?
Car does it automatically.
Automatically, so it's only a little drama there. So the body-worn camera, though, is manually activated, uploaded, and the car is done automatically, which means if a firearm is just not discharged, but unholstered, or a taser's unholstered, that's part of the body camera that will be docked at the end of the day?
Part of both. So the car's camera system will activate all the vehicles that are in range of the activation of the signal will activate. So that's what was happening is you would have points of view, right? Single points of view. But this system now gives us multiple points of view. So the car system, by the way in which this is designed, will activate on any other activation. So if I pull my firearm, it not only activates the body-worn cameras within range, also activates the vehicles within range, so that we're capturing more of a comprehensive, the 30,000-foot perspective of the event, and not from one single point of view, which then oftentimes protects us in various ways as it relates to what the officer was seeing and what was really happening in the entire environment.
Right, in a more comprehensive and holistic approach, which is another reason to argue for the system. I really appreciate your time here today and helping council to understand the enormity of it and the need for it, and I appreciate your petition, and I will be voting in favor. So thank you. Thanks, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Burgess.
As I decrease in leadership in some ways, during my time on council, I think the two things I have been the most active in has been affordable housing and policing. I am one of those rare people who I think have consistently supported the borough and has said privately and publicly that I believe that we have some of the best trained officers in the country. I have done everything I can in legislation to assist them. And so I want to make a philosophical argument, not really directed toward this moment, but I heard Barb say something, so I want to sort of put my view down. In the 16 years I've been here, I have never saw us vote down anything the police has asked us for. Not one single thing, whether it was
your chance.
whether it was rifles, whether it was training, whether it was technology, whether it was cameras in cars. And, we voted to give them things they didn't ask for. When we first did ShotSpotter, there was some resistance. We first did cameras in cars, there was resistance. So we voted all that. And I'm in favor of that. I think you need it. I'm in favor of it. I support the chief, support the borough and the officers. But there is this viewpoint I hear from time to time that I think is dangerous in our city. And it goes somewhat like this. Crime is up. We have to give more money to the police. Crime is down. To keep it down, we have to give more money to police. There is a mindset that will always, no matter what's going on in the city, their conclusion will always be to give more money to the police. What bothers me is not the investment in public safety. What bothers me at times is the scrutiny we give to giving money to community-based organizations and giving money to social services and giving money to preventative programs. And we'll spend hours, with that scrutiny, which is investing especially in black communities. If you start putting money in black communities, you'll see a fervor of conversation and scrutiny and due diligence, when that same level of due diligence does not exist in public safety. Not that you don't do it, but we don't have that level of accountability over you. And so I'm simply suggesting, and will say all the time, have said this since I've been on council, we need to have the best trained police, we have to have enough officers to keep us safe, and they have to be some of the highest paid professionals, right? I've always said you didn't make enough, right? I've been saying that for 15 years. So highest paid, the best trained, best officers, highest paid. At the same time, separate from you, we have to also invest in programming and partnerships in community-based organizations and partnering to build the underlying cause of crime, which is lack of jobs, affordable housing, education. I'll talk a little bit of education later. And so that's all. I'm in favor of this, certainly in favor of you. It bothers me sometimes when I listen, and we'll have some talk, but we're going to vote it through. Whatever you bring to us, we're going to vote through. Make no mistake. If you put on the table that you wanted $50 million to buy tanks, we would vote that through too. Well, we did this. We did it. Don't say we didn't. No, we wouldn't do it. We did do it. There was a time we did buy large armored vehicles.
We did?
We did. I know we did, right? 'Cause I saw them. I watched it ride through Homewood. I was standing there on the corner and watched it drive down the community. And that's when I put my first bill saying that we couldn't buy this stuff anymore, because I saw it. So I know we'll do it. No problem, though, with whatever you need. If you told me you need this, gonna make us safe, I'm with you, whatever. I'm simply, as an old man on council, the conscious of council.
Very old man.
Old man.
Sorry.
Suggesting that we need to be aware of that when we start talking about land banks, stop the violence funds, when we start talking about the smaller amounts of money, the bond, that we treat them equally with the same level of accountability. And if we're willing to give the police the benefit of the doubt in spending, then we should also give the investment in community-based organizations, investment in the community, the same benefit of the doubt, believing that both together, partnership together, the police and the community partnering together, both being strong and safe and both being healthy, is actually the best way to keep us safe. That's what I think.
Thank you. I've got Council President.
Yeah, I get to follow Reverend and I'm blowing my ready.
Then Councilwoman Warwick, then Councilwoman Gross.
Thank you. I just want to say to Reverend's comments, we've been on this conversation for about 2 hours, so I think we're giving it some scrutiny. But I will also say that I don't disagree that we should be partnering with the community groups. I think that we have to hold them accountable. And the difference between giving to the police and giving to community groups is we hold them accountable. They work for the city of Pittsburgh. They can be fired. The community people cannot necessarily be. So I think there's a lot, and we don't actually hold them to the same standards as we do our police officers. So I will say that a lot. With that said, I want to know what the number of officers this contract was based on.
So deployment, as it relates to deployment?
The additional 5 years. Did you base it on the 950? Did you base it off 1,200? Did you base it off of 500? What did you base it off?
What was patrol operations? Yeah.
The pricing is based on 950 units for the individual equipment, body-worn cameras and tasers, and 165 vehicles.
And where are we now with officers?
Sorry?
800 flat.
800 flat.
800 with 3 departures.
And where do
yesterday.
we anticipate being a year from now?
870, 875.
To increase?
Yes. We anticipate they will potentially hire 70 officers this year. So depending on departures.
You don't just give me a gun and a badge, okay? I'm just telling you. I'll be right on the street.
You were doing it the other day. You were doing it the other day. You were doing community police partnerships the other day.
Do not give me a gun or a badge.
Don't give. Yeah, don't seriously give me a gun or a badge.
But we're not at the 950 that the number is based on. We're probably about 70 or 80 officers short of that number.
Okay, but you anticipate increasing them and getting them.
We won't be at 950. So the budget is 900. That's where we will aim to stay.
Over 5 years, do you expect to get to 950?
I don't know the answer to that.
And I should just point out, that's the quoted number we would pay for what we actually utilized, right? So we wouldn't pay for 950 units if we didn't access 950 units, but the quote, it represents.
But do you anticipate getting the numbers up to about nine some?
We don't. I don't have an answer for you on that. The chief didn't already answer.
Yeah, and I don't. We won't buy 950 and sit them on a shelf either. So it's not to fulfill
you mean like the
contract.
What are those other cameras that go up in the air? What are those?
The drones.
The drones.
Yeah.
Do we use those yet?
Well, we would like to. That's another conversation for another day.
Okay.
So we may not want to open.
Listen, I want to give you the
that
tools
box.
to do the job that we ask you to do every
Yeah.
single day. And I do think that we all make all these demands and all these things that we say that we want you to do, that we want to see violence reduced, we want to see people, homicides down, we want to see our officers protected, we want to see everybody having good health. But then we also try to manage and micromanage everything. I remember Chief McClay one time, I said, what would you do to keep policing separate from politics, so that politics isn't interfering constantly on what the job is that we expect you to do to keep the public safe? And he said he would make the chief and public safety director independent of appointment from, it would be like a sheriff's office, voted in. So I'm thinking that maybe he's not so wrong about that, so.
Thank you. Before going to Councilman Coghill, I know Councilman Wilson needs to step away. Do you want to register an aye vote?
Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd like to register an aye vote on this bill and all remaining bills.
Thank you. Councilman Coghill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I'm sorry, I actually have to also step away. Can I also register an aye vote on all remaining bills? I apologize.
Okay. Thank you. Councilman Coghill?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to simplify this for me, okay? So, to date, per year, what do we pay to have all the equipment that we analyze? And I understand it's a different package, different components, but what does it cost us? $2 million? Is that accurate?
Sorry, I'm not sure of the exact figure of all the packages together. It's something we can certainly look into and get back to you on that number.
So there's nothing wrong with the tasers we have. There's nothing wrong with the body cameras that we have. It's about getting it under one system, this Axon system, more so. Is that right?
Our current agreement with them provides us with the tasers and body cameras we have now. And during its 5-year period, it provided for the replacement of them as they needed to be replaced or as new iterations of the technology came out. This extension of that contract would keep that in place. So it wouldn't necessarily mean that tomorrow the body-worn cameras or the tasers would be replaced. It would mean that the next time they would regularly be up for replacement, that would occur.
Right. Or better technology.
Yes.
Right?
Correct.
Okay. So what would happen if we were not to approve this? What would change? What would be different if we were to go with the Axon, other than the ability that the officer doesn't have to put the camera on himself or herself, right? We know that. But so what would be the big difference? Because like my colleagues, this price tag is enormous. It really is. It's a big price tag for and this is about technology. This is not about tasers. This is not about body cameras or police cameras. This is really about technology, isn't it? I mean, the hardware is the hardware. We have it now.
We have it, but it has a shelf life, right? And so it needs to be replaced.
Right. So let me ask you this. Can you put a price tag? Have they put a price tag on what the hardware would be over 10 years versus the services and the software?
The 10-year price for the vehicles, the vehicle component, is $4.789 million in this package. And that's for 165 vehicles. We have slightly fewer than that. And for 950 officers, again, we have fewer than that today. The price for the body-worn package is $39,556,000, which together constitute the vast majority of the overall cost. All of the other components cost, the most expensive is $352,000 over that 10-year period. So the vast majority of the cost is incorporated into the consistent replacement of the hardware.
Okay, so most of the cost, $44 million of it, is going into the hardware.
Correct.
Not the services that we're paying for.
Many of the services come free for having signed a 10-year agreement for the hardware.
Right, so it's part of their service.
Correct.
But if we were to price it out, it would be roughly $44 million for the hardware.
The roughly $44 million of this cost goes to the hardware. The pricing they would give us, if we were asking for different options, might be different. I can't speculate on what different in discounts or pricing they would provide. But of the total cost here, roughly $44 million, which is the vast majority of it, is for the hardware.
This would be a lot better if Axon had the self-reporting system. Is that something that they carry? Do they do that? Meaning, like, as we talked, previous meetings, whereas it'd be great to have a self-reporting. Somebody steals somebody's lawnmower. Instead of having 2 police officers respond and taking 3 hours of their time. For insurance purposes, that's all they're going to get out of it anyway. The self-reporting system. Is Axon do that, or do we even know?
They have a record management system. That would go back to, then we're all in every aspect of Axon.
But they do that.
So they have a records management system that is separate and distinct. They do that service, but it's not part of the body worn. It's not part of their camera system. It's not part of Taser.
Whole different deal.
Whole different platform. Record management. There's other companies that sit in that space that do it also, and we're moving to Central Square is the company we're moving to that migration to now. And so, yes, they could do it, but even to the online reporting, we have an opportunity with a different company that serves our purposes well and doesn't have that cost. So there, to Councilwoman Strasser's point, like looking for other savings in other places so that this is more palatable. And I just suggest we are one incident away where there's an expectation for this technology. It doesn't exist. So if we said we're not overly concerned with the in-car camera system, and we remove that, and now we have a officer-involved shooting, and there's no footage other than maybe what's captured in the moment from the body-worn that doesn't support what the officers say they observed, and what does that cost us?
Yeah, I'll say this. It's just a heavy price tag for technology. It really is. And I understand the need for it. In today's world, it's good to have everything on videotape, especially if we're dealing with a police matter. Now, just correct me. When an officer engages, when they're on their way to a scene, the car camera goes on.
If they have their lighting system on, the car camera. So not just in normal transit. So they have to. So it's got to be an emergency response.
Body cam goes on also at the same time.
If they activate their lights, it will.
Okay, if they activate their lights.
Correct. Sorry, just Chief, when you say, you mean once we're using Axon in-car cameras?
Right, in-car cameras.
I'm assuming, yes, right.
Today, one system is separate and distinct. So L3, when its lighting system goes on, it activates just the in-car camera system. It does not activate the body-worn part, the body-worn camera.
Okay.
But in this new system, once it is all operationalized, one will activate the other.
Okay, so you pull up to a scene, your lights are on, your body camera's on.
Yes.
Okay, it doesn't necessarily have to unsheath your weapon?
No, it does not.
Okay, gotcha. And if you pull up to the scene, you don't have your lights on, if you're just kind of observing something.
Then you're required by policy to activate the body worn.
Okay, but you can do that by pressing a button.
Press the button.
Okay, is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if the situation evolves rapidly and uncertainly, and you pull one of the weapons, deploy one of your weapons, then it will activate itself.
So the only way something cannot be filmed is if no siren is activated, they're on the scene, they get in an altercation, we'll say, without pulling a weapon, and that wouldn't be videotaped then because nothing's activating the cameras.
That one of, and the other way would be the officer defeats the body-worn camera by physically turning it off.
Oh, yeah, so they can turn it off.
But that's why all these other safeguards were put in place. So if that would happen, that we would still capture the incident from the vehicle. And then we obviously have accountability measures in place for the time that it's either forgotten to be turned on and or is intentionally turned off.
Right. So there's still human error involved in this. I mean, if a police officer, whether it's not activated by the car siren, whether they didn't put it on themselves, could still have an incident where something is not filmed.
We're just trying to minimize the amount of times that would ever occur.
I get it. Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. It's a hefty price tag. I have the same concerns. But you're all confident that we need this, you feel?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That's it for me.
Thank you.
Sorry. Councilman Warwick?
Yeah, so I just wanted to circle back to this public source article from 2017 to clarify this was not like an economy of scale situation. The article accounts for it. It says that these are deals. These are $1.5 million deal with Los Angeles Police for 300 more cameras than Pittsburgh. And in fact, one of the deals in Austin, Texas, the original deal was 500 cameras for $1.5 million. A competitor sued, claiming the bidding process was rigged, which led to a court injunction, and the deal was revised to provide 724 cameras for $925,000. So, and the headline, I didn't mention it before, but I might as well, because now the conversation's gone, you know, the headline, I mean, the real story of this article is that the commander at the time who negotiated this contract had worked for Axon for 5 years and had got all kinds of trips and like whatever, blah, 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 you know what I mean? And so there was scrutiny on the contract, right? This was about the contract. So I just wanted to make that clear. I mean, I'm very curious sort of what happened. I mean, similar to your question just now, like, you know, my feeling is that, I mean, what happens if we don't approve, right? Do we go back? I mean, then can the city go back to Axon and say, look, our city council said no way on this price? These guys are a business. I mean, it makes me wonder if they might, I mean, do you think they're just going to walk away from maybe $30 million for the 10 or a whatever for a 5-year instead of a 10-year? They're just going to walk away from that because Pittsburgh City Council said, yeah, we don't want to do a 10-year. We want the same deal but in a 5-year. I mean, that's just doing business, you know? I'm curious. I mean, if I were to motion to hold, would that be some? I mean, what would it be for you? I mean, I don't know who does this negotiating. How much time did it take to negotiate this contract? Would that be adding 6 months, or would that be, you know, like what kind of pain would that cause the department to sort of go back to this company and be like, look, city councils, you know, either held it because they don't, you know what I mean?
I don't know how to answer that question. Director Schmidt, who is unfortunately out of the office this week, would probably be the best position to answer it, unless you have any insights, Charles or Chief, or any commander.
I don't. I mean, this is so much money. I'm inclined to motion to hold 1 week till we can talk with Director Schmidt and talk about this contract, you know?
And I know that this has been in place or this is not in place, it's been negotiated over the course of several months. I don't have the exact timeline.
And I did not negotiate. I wasn't involved in negotiations, so I don't know how that was born or where.
I mean, this is like outside of the body cams and policing and whatnot, just about like the deal. Like, could we get a better deal? I'm curious.
The only thing I can speak to is when the deputy mayor spoke to,
Right,
like we
right.
we realized $10 million of savings by doing it over the course of this time. Was that the best deal that we could get? And I mean, $10 million is a lot of money to save as well. So in that, did we already get the deal that you're speaking of now?
Right. I mean, I'm just kind of curious if council can, like, it's almost like council become part of the negotiation. Like council, does council understand what I'm saying here?
That's expressly prohibited by code. I understand that you didn't mean direct participation in the negotiation, but just for the sake of the record.
Okay.
That's expressly prohibited by code for council to engage directly in a contractual negotiation.
No, that's not what I meant.
I realize that's not what you meant. I'm sorry, because of the way you phrased it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
I can only say that based on my evaluation, again, I didn't participate directly in the negotiations. Based on my evaluation of the materials that emerged from them, I am comfortable with and confident in the proposal that we have and the opportunity for savings that were achieved. And were I not, we would not have brought this forward to a vote today. But the determination on whether to hold is certainly that's council's to determine.
I mean, I guess I'll ask you all what you think. I'm sort of not sure what.
If I may.
Can we okay.
Yeah. So
I think what I was going to suggest is that we vote today, have another briefing like we did last week, and then if we're not comfortable, you know, with what's said in there, then we'll recommit it next week. Does that sound reasonable? Okay, I don't know. I'm going to leave it to you.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to state a couple of things. The $10 million in savings, you know, I'm in private business myself, right? Yes, maybe. I don't know who did the negotiating. None of you were at the table, correct?
The person is no longer here who did the negotiation, no longer working here.
Which negotiation? I'm
Sorry, who negotiated this new
No,
contract?
everybody that negotiated that contract still remains here. I was referring to the 2017 contract, the public source article.
I'm
the
sorry,
person
I
that
misunderstood.
that negotiated that contract
No longer, right,
works for the
sorry,
Bureau.
I misunderstood.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but no, everybody that's been involved in this process still remains a city employee.
But nobody at this table.
But nobody at this table.
That's right.
So companies obviously, buy today, we'll give you 50% off. I mean, it's all, it's private market. That's what they do. That's whether it's real $10 million in savings. I don't know. I mean, I still look at the cost increase and say, yeah, you might save $10 million, but they raised their price by 8.
Well,
so, go ahead.
Just for fairness, the savings, I understand what you're saying. It's not like the sticker price on a car versus what they let you leave the lot with. It was what they quoted us for 5 versus what they quoted us for 10. So, for example, we could have signed a 5-year contract. That if we had signed it for 5 years and then renewed it over a 10-year period, buying it in 5-year increments would have cost $10 million more. So that was a sign on this line, and you will get 5 years worth of service at this price. And the 10-year cost of that was $10 million more. So I think it's slightly different than kind of an inflated price point to, back factor in a discount to give you sort of like sticker, relief. It was an offer on the table for a price.
So just to, this is really where, and I mean, maybe this is bringing it back to sort of just green lighting public safety. So just to compare, and forgive me, but I can't remember her name and I don't even remember the bill, but there was a very large IMP contract that was negotiated. We brought the person who negotiated it to the table and she negotiated with this provider, no, that we're not accepting that. Give me a better offer. This was the kind of negotiation that went on over this particular IT contract. And she did a really good job. And, at any rate, so I'm curious if I'd like to kind of know if that's how this negotiation went, or if it was just yeah, we can offer you this for 5 years or this for 10 years. And we're like, well, that is a deal. Okay, we'll take the 10 years. As opposed to, no, that's too much. If we sort of tried to haggle, or if that's even possible when you're dealing with the Apple of body cams and tasers. Maybe it's not. I don't know.
Always negotiable, I think.
Yeah, not having been there, I can't provide the same level of
Right.
specificity you got in that case. But I do know that, as Charles mentioned, Director Schmidt and others were working on this for several months. So it wasn't a short process, and I believe, I'm confident involved extensive due diligence and discussion. What exactly the what the extent of the movement was is, I think, as you point out, somewhat dependent on the market share that the provider has. And so I can't say whether we had as many opportunities as were in that IMP contract to shape cost. But I do know that it was not, I'm confident that sufficient sort of diligence around the deal we were getting was deployed. Director Schmidt could speak more completely to what that included. And he's only not here, I should point out, because as the timing of the preparation of the contract to be submitted for review happened to occur on a week when he was out of the office. So.
Yeah, sure.
Any further discussion?
Whatever you want to do.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Any opposed?
Abstain.
Any
Abstain.
abstentions?
Is that okay?
One,
Yeah, I'll abstain. I mean,
2 abstentions. Councilman Strasburg, did you abstain?
I did not. I voted
Okay.
no.
You abstain,
Yes.
Councilman Coghill? So 3 abstentions, affirmative recommendation.
Till we get more information.
Understood. What?
I'm good.
Oh.
No, thank you.
I'm just
I'm
consistent
surprised
that
at
I
you,
don't vote
though.
for the extensions. I just
It's a
happen
big
to.
price, man. It's a big ticket.
But
Thank
I
you
want to
all.
help. I want to help the police. So I will.
That takes
Yeah,
us
really,
to
thank
Innovation Performance Asset Management Committee. No, it does not. Sorry. I'm skipping ahead. That takes us to Land Use Economic Development Committee,
Thank
which
you
is
all.
chaired by
Be safe.
Councilman
Thank you.
Wilson, and he's requesting a 3-week hold.
Motion to hold 3 weeks.
Read the bill
Second.
first.
Second.
Okay.
Director Paul.
3 weeks.
I'm moving
Once you read it.
That's a lot of money, man. That's a lot of money.
It's 4 o'clock, we're good, you can go.
You know what I feel like we're getting? Let me just say, let me say that.
Bill 661, ordinance accepting a new street name, Woodring Court, in the 23rd Ward of the City of Pittsburgh as per recommendation by the City of Pittsburgh Addressing Committee. The following street name was approved by CPAC in June 2022. The name listed in this ordinance shall be made official in accordance with the Pittsburgh Code Title IV, Public Places and Property, Chapter 420, Uniform Street Naming and Addressing.
Motion to hold 3 weeks.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill will be held 3 weeks. Now that takes us to innovation
And
performance.
before, I'm gonna do this at the end, or
Oh,
this one?
I forgot you had a bill under land use.
Yes, I'm gonna make a motion to suspend the rules, I believe.
Yes.
I'll second that.
Now you need to make a motion to bring the bill to the table.
We have to pass.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The rules have been suspended.
What I'm doing is I am resubmitting a bill that I held for 6 weeks because I read my email wrong. And this was at the end of my email. I approved it by email, but didn't see it. I saw some earlier part, and so when this came up, I didn't realize it was part of a package I had already approved, but found that there was some other secondary thing. And I was mistaken in my conversation. My budget director does a great job, and so I want to rectify the mistake that I made, not their mistake, but mine. So there's no reason to hold this up, and I'd already previously approved it. So I want to recommit this, not recommit, what is it? I want to bring back to the table, reconsider, that's the word, reconsider the bill, which is 2023-1536, that deals with my own CDBG money.
So that is, requires us, that's a motion?
Yes.
Reconsider.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill is back on the table. Now we need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The bill has received an affirmative recommendation. Now that takes us
You
to
stay here for all of that.
our last committee, Innovation, Performance, Asset Management, and Technology Committee, which is chaired by Councilman Warwick. Our first new paper is Bill 1630.
Bill 1630, Resolution amending Resolution 710 of 2022, authorizing the mayor and the director of the Department of Innovation and Performance on behalf of the City of Pittsburgh to adopt an existing government agreement through the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania's Cooperative Purchasing Program and to enter into any related agreement or agreements and amendments thereto as necessary with Carasoft Technology Corp. or Google Cloud Subscription Services, Google Assured Workloads to provide secure storage for sensitive data on the city's cloud platform and to add Astronomer Cloud scheduling, tools, training, and installation services, increase in the 2024 funding for Astronomer and Google Assured Workloads by $240,000 for a total not to exceed amount of $4,598,824.38.
Motion to approve, brief discussion. So the director is here, but I mean, I can just give a brief, so Google Assured Workloads is part of a cloud that we use for public safety data to comply with security requirements, and the astronomer services are part of Google Workloads, and they allow us to make data available to other parties and also to analyze the data. They're both under the same agreement, but the agreement was contracted until 2024, but we did not actually budget through 2024. So we were short 1 year on the budgeting, and that is what this is to put those funds in for that last year of the contract. I see the director nodding, so if anyone has any questions,
Like Groundhog Day, we're having this $240,000.
Right, which is 200, you're right, which is the 240,000.
240
Yes.
for the fifth year? I'm sorry, how many years? Doesn't say how many years. Let's just have the.
Through 2024. My understanding is the contract is through 2024,
I
but
see.
we only budgeted through 2023, so we need to add this extra year of funds to get us through the end of the contract.
Any further discussion?
No.
Well, I think that just in general, we need to have a discussion about IMP. You and I mentioned to you the other day, and I mentioned to the Director Pollock, so I just want to make sure that she knows
She has
it.
a gun and a badge.
And I have a gun in the badge, that's right.
I will make one.
I do have a
point.
budget.
Because we've been discussing the bond and how much money that is. We spent 2 hours discussing public safety and the amount of investment. However, if we actually add up over the time, the amount of money we spent on IMP and other technology related, it exceeds those dollar amounts.
Just since it does deserve a broader conversation. It is a digital world in which we live these days. It is a digital world, and we are critically dependent on it, and therefore obligated to make.
Come in smaller chunks, but if you look at it in its
it's
totality,
massive. I'm sure it's massive. Massive. Yeah, it is.
Councilman Strasburg.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree. And having formerly chaired the IMP committee, I also understand and want to just remind everyone that IMP does not, unlike public safety, unlike many other departments, it serves every department in the city. So it is providing the technology not just for themselves, but for council, and for city planning, and for PLI, and for public safety, which is a huge portion of the IMP budget is public safety. So just as, I wanted to add that bit back into the record as well.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. Bill 1631.
Bill 1631, resolution authorizing the mayor and the directors of the Department of Public Works and the Department of Innovation and Performance to enter into an agreement with Indoor View to improve the management of the City of Pittsburgh facility spaces for the total cost not to exceed $12,600.
To approve. I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry. Motion to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Affirmative recommendation. That exhausts our agenda. Our meeting announcements are, due to the Juneteenth holiday, we did that part, sorry. Next week, council will hold our regular and standing committee meeting on Tuesday, June 27th and Wednesday, June 28th at 10 a.m. respectively. Speaker registration will close at 9 a.m. the day of the meeting. To register to speak at these meetings, please fill out the sign-up form on the council meeting webpage or call the clerk's office at 255-2138. Anything from members? Councilman Burgess.
Real quick, I'll say this quick, it's hours late, but there is a report that's in the news that the math scores for our nation's 13-year-olds have the largest drop since they began assessing since 1973. In addition, their reading scores have declined by 4 points. Our children are in crisis educationally. I've been saying this for many years now, and it's getting worse. And we have yet to come together on a comprehensive approach in order to help our children learn. And that's something I think something I will do with part of the rest of my life. We have to do something for these kids.
Is that data national? Or is it just
It's national.
That's national data. However, if you look at the state of Pennsylvania, it gets worse. And if you look at the reading levels in fourth grade, I believe only 34% of our children are reading at grade level.
It's worse. If you look at
And that information came out yesterday, I believe.
if you look at the schools, if you look at Westinghouse grades, if you look at the grades, some of the
If you look at black children, it's in the teens,
it's awful.
both reading and math.
And yet, we never mind.
Sorry, Madam President.
No, I was just going to say, I used to work for the school district, and I support our schools, our teachers very much, but I think that they also need to feel supported, and so do the parents, in helping the kids get to where you need them to get. You're not going to do this alone. You're not going to do this through politics. It's going to be by involving the parents and the people. A lot of our kids live in foster care, so it's going to be by involving the people they live with. And so, with that said, I think that it's got to be, if you're going to talk about comprehensive plan, it's got to be everyone working together for the kids. I mean, honest to goodness, you go on the streets in our communities and kids are out, little kids, all by themselves with nobody around. And sometimes I go out 1 o'clock in the morning. I told people this, where I've gone on the streets in one of my communities, 1 o'clock in the morning, little kids, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds are hanging out with 18-year-olds while they're, selling drugs and doing something. Well, what the hell do you think is going to happen with our kids? So we've got to get a hold of what's going on in their homes and in our communities, and then we can expect our schools to do better than what they do. And we need to support our teachers, too.
Motion to adjourn?
So move.
No, I just saw people walking
Second.
away. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.